Every spring, millions of southern gardeners plant the same 7 vegetables, watch them slowly die in the heat, blame themselves, and quit. It's not your fault. You were handed a list built for people in Ohio. I'm going to show you the 7 vegetables that destroy southern beginners every single season, exactly why they fail, and the heat-loving replacements that'll have you pulling food out of the ground all summer long. Stay with me, because number 3's replacement plant actually gets more productive the hotter it gets, the opposite of everything you've been told. And the bonus tip at the end will completely change how you time your planting from this season forward. Hey, welcome back if you've been growing with me for a while. And if you're new here, you just found the only gardening channel that talks specifically about what actually works in southern heat, southern humidity, and southern soil. None of that northern gardening advice recycled and slapped with a different thumbnail. Before we get started, be sure to check out the plants, tools, and products featured in this video. Everything you need is linked right in the description below. Number 7. The killer. Spinach. The replacement. Malabar spinach. Here's what every southern gardening article gets wrong. They tell you to grow spinach. Spinach is a cool season crop that bolts, meaning it flowers and turns bitter the moment soil temperatures rise above 75 degrees Fahrenheit. In Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, Texas, and the Carolinas, you hit 75 degrees soil temperature in April, sometimes March. The spinach doesn't just struggle in southern summers, it gives up and dies before you even get a real harvest, and then you think you did something wrong. You didn't do anything wrong. You planted the wrong crop. Malabar spinach, specifically the variety red stem Malabar or Basella alba, is the replacement that changes everything. It's not actually related to true spinach. It's a completely different plant that happens to taste remarkably similar when cooked. And here's the key difference. Malabar spinach is a tropical vine that loves heat the way most plants love water. It doesn't just tolerate your southern summer, it explodes in it. Here's the growing trick that most people miss. Train it vertically. Give Malabar spinach a trellis, a fence, a mailbox post, anything it can climb, and it'll grow 6 to 10 feet tall and produce thick, glossy, dark green leaves continuously from June all the way through your first frost. The more you harvest, the more it produces. One established Malabar spinach plant produces roughly 3 to 5 pounds of leaves over a season. Organic cooking greens at your local store run $4 to $6 per pound. You're looking at $12 to $30 in produce from one plant that costs you $1.50 in seeds and essentially ignores your summer heat. The leaves have a slightly succulent texture, almost silky when sautéed in garlic, and the flavor is rich and mild in a way that genuine spinach can't match in hot weather anyway. Don't let your southern summer work against you. Make it work for you. Number 6. The killer. Lettuce. The replacement. Sweet potato leaves. Lettuce is the most recommended beginner vegetable on the internet. Warkirsko. It's also one of the fastest failures for southern gardeners who try to grow it past May. Lettuce is physiologically wired to bolt when day length increases and temperatures rise. In the South, both of those things happen at the same time and they happen fast. You get 3 weeks of decent lettuce, then an overnight heat spike turns every leaf bitter, and the plant shoots up a flower stalk seemingly overnight. Beginner gardeners see this and assume they failed. They didn't. The crop failed them. The replacement here is one that stops people cold when they hear it. Sweet potato leaves. Yes, the sweet potato plant you're probably already thinking about growing for the actual potatoes. Those vines produce leaves that are tender, slightly sweet, completely heat immune, and eaten as a staple green across West Africa, the Caribbean, Jas, and Southeast Asia. In the southern U.S., most gardeners don't even know they're edible, which means you're sitting on one of the most productive greens in the world and treating the plant like a ground cover. Variety matters here too. Beauregard and Georgia Jet are the 2 most widely available sweet potato varieties in the South, and both produce excellent eating leaves. But if you want to grow specifically for leaf production, Puerto Rico vines are particularly lush and productive. Here's the little-known trick. Harvest the top 6 inches of young vine growth every 2 weeks. These tender growing tips are sweeter and more tender than older leaves, and regular harvesting causes the plant to branch aggressively, producing more tips. One sweet potato vine left to run across a raised bed will give you 2 to 3 pounds of edible greens per month on top of whatever potatoes you pull at the end of the season. Specialty greens at southern farmers markets run $3 to $5 a bunch. Your sweet potato vines are producing that equivalent every 2 weeks for free, as a side effect of a plant you are already growing. Has any vegetable ever done more work for less credit than this one? I don't think so. The flavor, when stir-fried with a little butter and garlic, is genuinely surprising. Mild, slightly earthy with a hint of sweetness that makes it one of the most pleasant summer greens you'll put on a plate. Number 5. The killer. Broccoli, summer planting. The replacement. Moringa. This one requires a quick clarification before the gardening crowd comes for me. Tim, broccoli can grow in the south, but only in fall and very early spring. The mistake beginner southern gardeners make over and over again is planting broccoli in spring like every general gardening guide tells them to, watching it head up prematurely in a tiny, loose, useless floret, and giving up. Summer broccoli in the south is a trap. The heat causes a phenomenon called buttoning, where the plant skips normal head development and goes straight to flowering without producing the dense head you're after. The replacement is one of the most nutritious plants you can grow on Earth, and it's criminally underused in American home gardens. Moringa oleifera, specifically the variety PKM1, or the common Periaculum strain available from southern seed suppliers, is sometimes called the miracle tree, and the name isn't entirely dramatic. Thick moringa is a fast-growing tropical tree that thrives in the exact conditions that destroy broccoli: intense heat, low humidity, even drought. In southern climates, it grows up to 15 feet in a single season if left unpruned. Here's the growing trick that makes it work as a food crop rather than an ornamental. Cut it aggressively. When your moringa reaches 4 to 5 feet, cut it back to 2 feet. It responds by branching massively and producing dense clusters of new growth. Those young leaves, harvested regularly, are what you're after. They have a mild, slightly peppery flavor similar to a cross between spinach and watercress, and they're nutritionally extraordinary. High in iron, calcium, protein, and vitamins A and C at levels that make broccoli look modest by comparison. One moringa plant managed as a cut-and-come-again bush will produce 4 to 6 pounds of leaves over a southern summer. Moringa powder at health food stores sells for $20 to $30 per pound. Fresh moringa leaves at specialty markets run $6 to $10 per bunch. Your one plant, grown from a $3 packet of seeds, produces something with a retail equivalent of $40 to $60 over a season. And, unlike broccoli, it gets happier the hotter your summer gets. Number 4. The killer. Peas, spring. The replacement. Southern peas. Here's something that reveals a fundamental disconnect between mainstream gardening content and southern reality. Nearly every beginner gardening guide tells you to plant peas in spring as one of your first crops. Sweet peas. Snow peas. Sugar snap peas. And in Vermont or Oregon. That's completely correct. In the South, planting English-type peas in spring means you get about 4 weeks of production before the vines collapse in the heat and humidity. The pods become tough and starchy, and powdery mildew finishes off whatever the heat didn't. Southern gardeners have known the answer to this for generations, and it's been sitting in the name the whole time. Southern peas. Specifically, varieties like Iron and Clay, Zipper Cream, Mississippi Purple Hull, and the legendary Whippoorwill. These aren't just heat-tolerant peas. They're peas that were bred by and for the southern climate over hundreds of years. They're what people in Alabama and Georgia and the Mississippi Delta grew before anyone was writing gardening content for the internet. Here's the specific growing trick that beginners overlook. Southern peas fix nitrogen in the soil as they grow, meaning they're actively improving your garden bed while they feed you. Don't fertilize them with high nitrogen fertilizer. This seems backwards. Who doesn't feed their vegetables? But too much nitrogen causes southern peas to grow enormous vines with very few pods. Let the plant do its own nitrogen work. Water consistently. Stay out of the way. One 10-foot row of zipper cream peas will yield 3 to 5 pounds of shelled peas over a season. Fresh shelled southern peas at a southern farmer's market or farm stand run $3 to $5 per pound. You're saving $9 to $25 from one row of a crop that's actually improving your soil while it grows. And the flavor of a fresh-shelled zipper cream pea, cooked low and slow with a ham hock and onion, it is something that connects you to about 300 years of southern food culture at once. No store-bought pea comes close to that. Number 3. The killer, cilantro, summer. The replacement, Vietnamese coriander. This one gets a strong reaction every time, and I need you to hear me out on it. Cilantro is the most bolted, most frustrating, most repeatedly murdered herb in the southern garden. Every southern cook needs cilantro. Every southern summer destroys it within 3 weeks of planting. Cilantro is genetically programmed to flower and set seed at the first sign of heat and long days. In the South, that means your cilantro has approximately 1 good month in early spring before it bolts, turns bitter, and refuses to produce usable leaves for the rest of the year. And this is the replacement I promised you earlier, the one that actually gets more productive the hotter it gets. Vietnamese coriander, also called rau ram or Persicaria odorata, tastes remarkably similar to cilantro. Most people in a blind taste test cannot reliably tell them apart in cooked dishes. But the key difference is that Vietnamese coriander is a tropical perennial that loves southern heat with a passion that would embarrass your cilantro. When temperatures hit 90 degrees, Vietnamese coriander doesn't bolt. It doesn't slow down. It accelerates. The plant spreads, roots at every node, and produces fresh, flavorful leaves continuously from spring through fall. Here's the growing trick that makes it almost too easy. Take one cutting, a single stem with 2 or 3 leaves, stick it in moist soil, and it roots in 7 to 10 days without any rooting hormone. 1 plant becomes 5. 5 becomes 25. You propagate it for free indefinitely from your own garden. Share cuttings with neighbors. Pot them up and give them away. It becomes a self-sustaining herb supply. One established Vietnamese coriander plant produces roughly 2 to 3 ounces of fresh leaves per week during the growing season. Fresh herb bunches at the grocery store run $2 to $3 each. Over a 20-week southern growing season, you're replacing $40 to $60 in herb purchases from a plant that started as a $3 cutting and now reproduces itself for free. Close your eyes and rub a Vietnamese coriander leaf between your fingers. The smell is bright, citrusy, and unmistakably familiar. Your nose won't know the difference. And your summer garden definitely will. If this video is reframing how you think about southern gardening, hit that like button right now. It genuinely helps more southern gardeners find this content who need it. Subscribe and turn on notifications because next week I'm covering the exact planting calendar for southern zones that no one publishes online. And drop a comment below telling me which of these killer vegetables you've personally lost to southern heat. I want to know I'm not the only one who murdered an entire flat of lettuce in June. Alright, back to it. Number 2. The killer, zucchini, midsummer. The replacement, tromboncino squash. Before you argue with me, stay with me for 60 seconds. Zucchini is not a bad southern vegetable. Early zucchini, planted in April and harvested through June, can be outstanding in the South. See, the problem is what happens in July and August. Squash vine borers, a moth whose larvae tunnel directly into the base of your zucchini plant and kill it from the inside, are a southern gardening catastrophe that destroys more beginner confidence than almost any other pest problem. You plant your zucchini with pride. You get a few weeks of production. Then the plant wilts overnight, you pull it up, and you find the stem hollowed out like a crime scene. Most beginners never figure out what happened. They just know their zucchini died. Tromboncino squash, variety tromboncino, or its close relative Zucchetta rampicante, is the replacement that beats the vine borer problem naturally. Here's why this works, and it's genuinely clever. Tromboncino is a Cucurbita moscata species, not Cucurbita pepo like regular zucchini. Squash vine borers overwhelmingly prefer Cucurbita pepo. They largely ignore Cucurbita moscata. By switching species, you sidestep the pest that's been destroying your summer squash every July, without sprays, without row covers, without any intervention at all. The growing trick with Tromboncino is vertical. This is a vigorous climbing vine. Give it a cattle panel arch, a sturdy fence, or a pergola, and it'll grow 12 to 15 feet and produce fruit that hangs down like pale green curved horns, which is where the name comes from, trombone. Harvest them young at 8 to 10 inches for the best zucchini-like texture and flavor. Left to mature, they become a winter squash that stores for months. One Tromboncino vine in a good southern summer will produce 20 to 40 fruits over a season. A specialty squash at farmers markets runs $2 to $4 per piece. You're looking at $40 to $160 in produce from one plant that costs $1.50 in seeds and, crucially, doesn't die in August. The flesh has a slightly nuttier, creamier flavor than standard zucchini, and the texture holds up better in heat, meaning it doesn't turn to mush in the pan the way oversized zucchini can. Grow it up. Let it sprawl overhead. Pull a curved green fruit off a vine above your head on a hot August morning when every regular zucchini in your neighborhood is dead. That is a moment you remember. Number 1. The killer. Tomatoes. Wrong variety. The replacement. Heat set. Tomato varieties. Tomatoes deserve the number 1 spot on this list because no vegetable causes more heartbreak in the southern garden. And no failure is more preventable once you understand one specific thing about tomato biology. Here it is. Tomatoes drop their blossoms and stop setting fruit when nighttime temperatures stay above 75 degrees Fahrenheit, and daytime temperatures push past 95. In the Deep South, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, South Georgia, South Texas, that temperature window arrives in late June and doesn't leave until September. Standard tomato varieties, including most heirlooms and many popular hybrid types sold at garden centers, stop producing fruit entirely during this window. The plant stays alive. It looks green and healthy, but it isn't making tomatoes. And beginner southern gardeners stand in their garden in July wondering why their perfectly healthy-looking plant has no fruit on it while the neighbors seem to be doing fine. The neighbors doing fine are growing heat-set varieties. This is the term that changes everything, and it's the one piece of information that most southern beginner gardeners never encounter because it's buried in university extension literature rather than mainstream gardening content. Heat-set varieties are tomatoes specifically bred to set fruit at high temperatures. The key varieties are Solar Fire, Heat Master, Sweet 100, for cherry types, and the legendary Bradshaw, a variety that was bred in South Carolina specifically for southern growing conditions and has been quietly outperforming everything else in hot climates for decades. These varieties have been genetically selected to produce viable pollen at temperatures that render standard varieties sterile. They don't just tolerate southern heat. They're engineered for it. And here's the growing trick that pushes heat-set varieties to their absolute limit. Plant them early. In most southern zones, that means late February to early March under frost protection. You want your heat-set tomatoes established, flowering, and in early fruit production before the brutal heat arrives, not just surviving it. An established plant with a strong root system and early fruit load handles summer heat dramatically better than a young plant trying to establish itself in June temperatures. Give your plants shade cloth, 30% shade cloth, during the peak heat of July and August. This drops leaf temperature by 8 to 12 degrees without meaningfully reducing light for photosynthesis. And it can be the difference between a plant that keeps setting fruit and one that stalls completely. Waste. One well-managed heat-master tomato plant in a southern garden will produce 30 to 50 pounds of fruit over a full season that runs from late spring through fall frost. At organic tomato prices of $3 to $5 per pound from the farmer's market, your one correctly chosen, correctly timed plant is producing $90 to $250 in tomatoes. That number is not a typo. And here's the thing about a vine-ripened southern tomato in late June when you've grown it yourself from the right variety in the right conditions. The color is deep red with a warmth to it. The skin is taut. You slice through it, and the juice runs immediately. The smell is floral and sharp in a way that a plastic-wrapped supermarket tomato has been bred entirely out of. And that flavor, acidic and sweet and complex all at once, is the reason people grow tomatoes. It's the reason Southern grandmothers grew tomatoes, and it's available to you this season if you plant the right variety at the right time. Stop fighting your climate. It's the first and most important thing I can tell you. The South is not a hostile environment for food growing. It's an incredibly productive one. It just requires plants that are honest about where they live. The heat map timing trick that changes everything. I promised you a bonus that would change how you time your planting from this season forward. And here it is. The single biggest mistake Southern beginner gardeners make has nothing to do with variety selection, soil quality, or watering. It's calendar confusion. Most planting calendars you find online, on seed packets, in popular gardening books, on major gardening websites, are built around USDA hardiness zones. You've seen the map. You know your zone. Zone 8, Zone 9, Zone 7B. The problem is that hardiness zones measure minimum winter temperature only. They tell you nothing about summer heat. And in the South, summer heat is the variable that determines whether your garden thrives or collapses. The tool you need instead is the AHS Plant Heat Zone Map, the American Horticultural Society's heat zone system. This map divides the country based on the number of days per year where temperatures exceed 86 degrees Fahrenheit, which is the threshold above which plants begin experiencing cellular heat stress. The South is heat zones 7 through 12. Most generic gardening content is written for heat zones 1 through 4. Here's the free and practical application of this. Go to your local University Extension Service website. Every southern state has one: LSU Ag Center, Texas A and M Agri-Life, Clemson Extension, Alabama Cooperative Extension, NC State Extension. Every single one of them publishes free, state-specific planting calendars built around actual southern conditions, not generalized national advice. These calendars will tell you the precise planting windows for your specific region based on both first and last frost dates and heat accumulation data. Print that calendar. Tape it inside your garden shed or on your refrigerator. Use it instead of the general internet advice that was never written for you. I made this switch 3 years ago after losing an entire spring garden to planting timing that was correct for someone in Illinois and wrong for someone in my zip code. The difference in my garden's productivity in the first year after switching was not subtle. It was the kind of improvement that makes you wonder what else you've been doing based on advice built for somewhere else. This costs you nothing. A search for your state name plus Cooperative Extension Vegetable Planting Calendar takes 30 seconds. The information waiting for you on the other side of that search was put together by plant scientists who work specifically in your climate, your soil types, and your weather patterns. It is the most powerful free gardening resource most southern gardeners have never used. So here's where you are right now. You know the 7 vegetables that are going to fail southern beginners this season and exactly why they fail. You have the direct heat-loving replacements ready to plant. You know the variety names that actually work in your climate, the growing tricks that multiply your yields, and the timing system that puts all of it in the right window. You have everything you need to have a genuinely different garden this summer. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications right now because next week I'm releasing a full Southern growing calendar broken down by zone with exact planting dates, and you don't want to miss the timing window for fall planting, which starts earlier than almost every Southern gardener realizes. Drop a comment and tell me which of these 7 killer vegetables claimed your garden in a past season. Was it the lettuce? The cilantro? The tomato blossoms dropping in July with nothing to show for it? Tell me your story. And then go find your state extension planting calendar, pin it up somewhere you'll see it, and let's have the best Southern garden season you've ever grown. I'll see you in the next one. Garden Friend.